is Zahida Ramzan, a policy coordinator for the Equalities unit in corporate services. Why we got involved in the pilot was because we had been involved in, we had experience of doing an integrated impact assessment quite a few years back, and we were keen to obviously get involved in this pilot to make sure that we were taking account of human rights as well. We have the guidance at the moment gives quite clear guidance to officers on when they need to do it's an equality impact assessment at the moment. It doesn't have human rights embedded within it, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted to actually do the pilot. The guidance states when the types of policies and procedures that an impact assessment should be done on, and also which ones shouldn't. For example, routine annual reports and performance reports don't need an impact assessment. The most important part of the impact assessment is actually gathering the evidence to state whether it's going to have a positive or negative impact on service users. So, and obviously, speaking to people, doing statutory consultations or a consultation of any form takes a long time. So they need to build all of that in and make sure that it's actually embedded in the kind of at the start of the service change process, as opposed to coming to the end of it and thinking, well, I need to do an impact assessment, and what do I do now? So yes, it is. It takes it's time consuming. The screening process in our guidance is helping officers to identify when they need to do an impact assessment, go through the various steps, and it's if I think about it, it's about identifying the relevance to the equality protected characteristics and whether that policy change is going to have an impact on them, and if so, is it all of them or is it some of them, and what the kind of nature or the level of impact is going to have. And once an officer's gone through that screening process, it'll help them decide whether they need to do a more fuller equality impact assessment, which involves a lot more time, but also gathering the evidence, as I've talked about, and speaking to stakeholders. I mean, I thought when we started the pilot, it was going to be complicated, but having now reached the end of it, it makes a lot of sense, obviously, because what we've learned, I mean, obviously any policy or service change is going to have an impact on people, but I think starting from a human rights angle, it makes a lot of sense because it incorporates the equality protected characteristics anyway, covered under the equalities legislation. It does take time. That's what we've certainly found, that it's very time consuming but very worthwhile when you get to the end of it and you think, well, I think particularly for areas like finance or planning or transportation, areas which typically people might not think there's a human rights angle, it helps to gather that kind of evidence to help support the kind of human rights approach to policy making. I struggled at the beginning to understand it because it seemed very legalistic, but I think coming to the end of it, and I think still though that not all of the articles in the Human Rights Act, that they're irrelevant, not to a local authority point of view anyway, but I think that some of them certainly are, and particularly the pilot that we've done in relation to welfare reform, some of the articles were very relevant. So I certainly have a better understanding. I actually quite enjoyed it in the last couple of months.